It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
All right, welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcast podcasted weekly from a kitchen bench in Kingsland, Auckland, New Zealand. My name's Lewis, and I'm the host of the show, aiming to bring you conversations with people doing things. Did I already say it's from a kitchen bench in Kingsland? I think I did. I think that's the bit that automatically comes out of my brain now every week. This one's been sitting around a while. I actually recorded it the same week as I recorded episode 40. But life keeps getting in the way lately, and also these monologues seem to take more thought on my part than the actual recording of the episode, which is weird when you hear today's monologue, because it's completely unplanned. There's no notes here, and I have nothing of particular, incredible, world-changing note to talk about. I did cover social media commentary on sexual violence last week, so maybe just a bit of a messy, all over the place, lighthearted rant today. My guest this week, someone had said to me just before I saw said guest post something I thought was quite amusing on a mutual friend's Facebook page. Someone had said to me, well, just get people in, regardless of their public presence. Just people who are interesting. And I said, well, that's kind of been the mandate the whole way. And I thought I've got more of the luxury to do that now, because people are touch wood, touch bench. People are downloading the episodes based on the fact they like the show now. So anyway, I got in touch with mutual Facebook acquaintance via her comments. I can't remember what it was now. And it was Elizabeth Allan. And that's right, I did some online... No, did I do the online stalking first or afterwards? Stalking is a strong word. Did the research afterwards. She's a self-published novelist, written 6 novels, including an autobiography at the age of 16. 3 are self-published by her own admission. No one's ever bought them. But she had a great sense of humour about it, and that's why I'm being so forthright about that. Like anything, people you chip away, you'll get there. She's currently finishing a creative writing masters, which involved, surprise, writing another novel, and we kind of talk life, the universe, and everything from her love of coming up in 90s pop culture and still kind of being ensconced with the stories and so on, to her to my eventual prying towards the end as to who the house DJ is that she's moving over to Chicago to be closer to, and then all the life stuff in the middle, including trips to Manchester, Saudi Arabia, where I think in hindsight I may have been a little... I did something potentially quite racist with the discussion about Saudi Arabia. I lumped all Saudi men into the category or term I used, lecherous. I could have used... I could have been a bit more broad in my brushstrokes, talking about the fact that Saudi Arabia is known to be let's say a quite heavily patriarchal society, but to call everyone lecherous perhaps unfair. So I apologise for that. I'm sure there's strong male feminist youth movements in Saudi Arabia or something like that. Anyway, look, listen, enjoy this show. I was going to try... I've been of two minds. I've been of two minds about trying to get to 50 episodes in a year, because I am super busy in paid life and other such things at the moment. And I've talked a few times in the last few episodes about how it's harder and harder to get guests. But I got all motivated again today when I looked at the fact that the very first episode was put up online November 24th, 2016, with the lovely Thomas. And that means that after this episode, I've got pretty much 5 weeks, including this one, to get another 8 episodes up. So I'll try my darndest. Especially now I've got the financial backing of, not sponsors, what do you call them? Patrons. The lovely people who donated to pay the web subscription for next year. Okay, and shouts to Hallertau Brewery too. If you'd like to like the show, like 8 new people did this week after listening to the Dylan C episode, You can go to Verbal Highs Podcast on Facebook, at Verbal Highs on Twitter. I've got a website. It's called verbalhighs.com. And also liking and subscribing on iTunes, and perhaps leaving a wee comment there is a real help too. Thanks for coming in, Elizabeth. You were great. There were some very humorous moments. My favourite, the weird, the surreal laughter around the aubergine emoticon. On with the show.
This is Dr. Tannen's Verbal Highs.
Well, I had to write down one word in case I forgot.
Somnambulism. What was it?
Mycoplasma bovis. Mycoplasma bovis. I better learn how to say it. Mycoplasma bovis.
You're fine. Where you're sitting with that.
Okay, great. Oh, yeah.
Is there cupboards here?
Yeah, 80 minutes is a long time.
Well, hello. Okay, cool. Have you ever done anything like this before?
No. Oh, well, I've done a tiny bit. What have I done? I used to do these little guest things with my friend on Fleet Radio.
Yeah.
She had a show and I went up and talked about books and records.
Great.
But very briefly.
So you're not like completely terrified?
Oh, no. And lots of my friends are on radio. So I've spent quite a bit of time in studios, BFM and George.
Yeah.
So I've seen this sort of scenario. And I did very briefly host a show at high school, which nobody listened to.
You had a radio station at high school?
Well, not a station, a show. Oh, you mean did the high school have a station?
Where was the radio station at high school is what I mean.
Yeah, at Nayland College in Nelson.
They had a radio station?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing for back then.
Yeah.
Because they've all got technology now, but they didn't when I was at school. And I'm not much older than you.
Yeah.
You're born in 1980?
80. Mm-hmm.
76.
76. Yeah, so that was a brief thing where I played drum and bass.
Hang on a second. Drum and bass at high school, it must have been pretty early on.
97.
Good year for drum and bass.
Yeah, I was
good year for jungle.
I was into drum and bass from 95, 94, right at the beginning.
So was I. I hosted the first ever drum and bass show on Radioactive.
Ooh.
Yeah. But they kicked me off because I didn't have as many good records as the rest of the guys. But no, hang on. That sounds like a taste thing. I wasn't buying as many new other tunes as other people were. You know how drum and bass is like? It was always like, if it's older than 2 weeks old, it's
absolutely
gone.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know, man. I've got no problem with a classic in any genre coming up in a set. You know?
Yeah,
you
but
know?
I think it was about not so much classics, but what was coming out and just having the freshest.
That's right.
But then you could put classics in that, but
internet killed that.
Yeah, definitely.
Welcome. My guest is Elizabeth Allan, who's a novelist, journalist, editor, ESL tutor and sub-editor, who's also done the obligatory stints in hospo over the years. You're currently working at the Lee Sawmill?
Oh, no, I left the Lee Sawmill. I'm doing a master's in Auckland and teaching ESL downtown.
So you lived in, Matakana or somewhere for a spell?
Yeah, I lived there for a year last year.
Mm-hmm. Nice spot.
It was very nice. I'd just been in Saudi Arabia, so...
I want to ask you about that later, being a woman in Saudi Arabia. I'm sure that's an experience in itself.
Yes, but the nature after that was even more beautiful.
Yeah. Did you meet, Matakana's small, did you meet my dear friend Benny Staples?
I don't know if I did. Is he a DJ?
Yeah, he's a musician from the late 70s till now who's big into dance and electronic music who DJs at the Matakana markets on Sundays.
Oh, wonderful. I was actually in Lee. Yeah. So I did go to Matakana a bit, but Lee is an even smaller subset of that. The
Sawmill's pretty special,
area.
Eh?
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually loved it up there.
Yeah. Bit different to ink, but less grueling.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, so I read that thing out and I thought, because by your own admission, I would have joked about it, but you did on the phone. You were like, I looked at your guests and I'm kind of, I'm not sure I'm kind of as well known as the rest of them.
Right.
But I have this idea of just people doing interesting stuff. I'll get them in and chat to them. But I thought about it with that. So like I read what you do. And I hate this. I really hate this question. Like for some reason, what it is, like if I met something social or whatever, and a stranger's kind of earliest things like they say to me is like, "What do you do?" I I don't like answering that. But what do you say to people when they say, "What do you do?"
Yeah, well, I appreciate you getting me in on those grounds.
Yeah.
And it is a difficult question because on the one hand, you want to kind of be positive and say, I'm a novelist. But then the next thing they say is, great, where can I buy your books? Or who's your publisher? So I don't really like to say that up front. Usually I say I teach and I write and then kind of take it from there.
Yeah. I don't like it because it's like vocation based, and I don't think like paid employment should be the barometer of like, what do you do defining like
I absolutely
who you are,
agree. Yeah, when I ask people that at parties, and I'm quite an awkward chit-chat person at parties.
I hate small talk.
Yeah, I try to rephrase the question. So how do you spend your days? And weird things like that. But yeah, doesn't come off that well.
Yeah.
But it's true, that is a difficult question. I can just say I'm a writer, but then I don't really do much journalism either. I don't write short stories, I don't write poetry, I just write novels.
Yeah.
So,
but you did do a journalism postgrad diploma.
I did.
Did that firm your constitution that you were just one kind of writer? What did the journalism course teach you?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I had been doing a little bit of journalism. I'd written for Pavement in the early 2000s. Not a great deal, but an article every issue for probably about 2 years.
Awesome.
And that was fun, being part of that community. And then I went to Japan and was writing for worlddj.com. And I'm not sure how many people read it or how useful it was, but writing for them gave me hall passes to the Tokyo Club. So that was brilliant.
Wow.
People just let me in or, gave me guided tours.
Wow.
And then I had been teaching already for a few years, teaching English as a second language and doing that in Japan, and didn't really want to be a teacher. So thought, well, I'll do the journalism to take that in a different direction. But as you said, it kind of consolidated that I wasn't a journalist, I was a novelist. But I was also interested that authors such as Ernest Hemingway had that journalism background. Yeah. So I'd always known that was something kind of valued in novelists, to have that news eye, that sparse style, leading with hooks. Yeah. So I took it on board both as a means to possibly do journalism and become writing for a newspaper maybe. I was interested in investigative journalism, long form. Yeah. But I just didn't pursue it. And there's no great reason for that.
You still got something great out of it, which is, everything you just said in terms of figuring out exactly who you are writing-wise. But also, and I've not done the course, but I imagine that even if you turn up there thinking you're the most shit hot writer in the world because you've been doing it since you're 15 and blah, 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 I'd imagine it ultimately tightens your writing a little and it teaches you a few of those kind of chops-based things, having to do that for a year.
Absolutely. I loved the course. It was really intensive. It was a great group. The tutors were great in particular.
One of my favourite colleagues is Greg, and I actually I'd like to spend more time with Greg outside of work than we do, but it's an age thing where he's got kids and he's on Waiheke and da-da-da-da-da. I'm the footloose and fancy-free one, but I have said I'll go out there and try and go fishing or something at some stage.
Yeah, he was a great inspiration, and the course on the whole was just worth every cent and all the time that I put into it.
Cool. Childhood. Grew up in Whakatane?
I did not grow up there. I was born there and was there till I was 3.
Okay, so we can't get any feedback on that.
Well, my dad still lives there.
I remember falling over in a hallway once. That's about it.
Yeah, well, my dad still lives there, so I do go back, not as often as I should.
So your folks split, I take it?
Yes, correct.
And Mum took you to Auckland?
Gisborne.
Yep,
for primary school. And then New Plymouth for intermediate.
Wow. So a move around smaller cities of New Zealand.
Yes.
Why was she moving so much?
Her partner had got transferred.
Right.
Corporate world jobs. Yeah. So Auckland for high school and Nelson for high school also.
So how was that going from Auckland is the big smoke compared to those places, and then you end up in even bigger smokes, which I'll talk about in a second. But was that a bit of a culture shock? And around that age too, like early teens and stuff, everything's going on. Was it quite a transition, or you were just used to moving?
In some ways I was used to moving, but the other thing is that I was a pony club girl.
Yeah.
And
what does that mean?
It means I had ponies and went to the club in Gisborne, New Plymouth and Auckland.
Right.
So I went to St Heliers Bay Pony Club.
Yeah.
So because of that culture, there was a segue. And then also,
I get you.
already in New Plymouth, I was getting into music, Guns N' Roses and REM.
Yeah.
And I fell into those kind of crowds in Auckland as well. So the culture, even though the towns were bigger, was kind of similar because I've always been into subcultures.
Yeah. So there was subcultures in Gisborne.
Gisborne, I was a bit young. That was primary school only. But New Plymouth, it started kicking in. I mean, that's still pretty young, but that is when music started surfacing, as well as Pony Club.
Funny you say that. I'm being a little bit unfair on small towns or smaller cities. When I used to DJ a bit outside of where I was living, be it Wellington or Melbourne or Auckland, I've ended up in New Plymouth a few times, and they do have a great little quietly music scene there. People like good music.
That's right. Well, it doesn't matter how big a town is. The scene can be very small, but I just seem to always be in that. So the same as Lee, it's a tiny place, but I was friends with the music.
You're drawn to the subversive and the strange, and the left of centre.
So. Yeah, that would be true. I seem to find them, or they find me pretty easily.
Yeah, can't shake it. So, are you from a family of literary people?
Not writers, but certainly readers. Both mum and dad read a lot, way more than me, actually. I feel like I've never read anything. Dad keeps diaries. He's kept one since the 70s.
Wow.
He writes in it every day.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
It is. And my mum doesn't rate herself, but is really eloquent.
Yeah.
And same as my sister. Just in letters and emails and things like that, they can express themselves amazingly.
So what sort of books did you pick up early on that led to you really getting stuck into writing in your mid-teens?
Mid-teens, it would have been Victorian fiction, so Henry James, George Eliot, Jane Austen.
Yeah.
And also mafia books, any of those kind of pulp classics.
Yeah.
From the US, so I actually wanted to be a lawyer and represent the mafia.
Yeah.
And then
that's like the most romantic end of law. It's
Yeah.
like you can end up doing like signing off properties in a corner of Auckland, or you can represent the mafia in Chicago.
Right. And when I realised that I probably wasn't going to get access to the mafia, that's when I decided not to do law. But then also Irvine Welsh was
You're
massive.
like, nuts. Irvine Welsh, absolutely.
Nick Hornby and those guys.
I was going to say Nick Hornby, and just around that time, just the subculture around that, the films that were coming out at the time. I remember Human Traffic fondly. Actually, someone watched it again recently and said it's a bit crap. I need to go back to it. But I remember watching it, and there was a bunch of us just going, "That's our life" on screen.
Me too.
At the time. So back to those books, I was thinking, like, I find now with technology and stuff, I got no data or anything to back this up, but my students, like, because everything's just being thrown at them all the time, to me it feels like they're always kind of looking forward. They're not looking back as much as, like when I did a film degree, we watched all the classics. We went back to, like, early Russian cinema, da-da-da-da-da. Do you reckon many kids would even pick up Victorian fiction these days, or is it just too far removed from them?
I'm always cautious about any kind of blanket statements, so I think most people wouldn't, and yet there'll still be kids that do. Yeah. And that will just apply to anything, whether they're looking into...
So you're saying even then you were an esoteric exception to what people were reading?
I don't remember talking to my friends about what they were reading, actually. We had to study some at school, and that's where I got into Hemingway and Fitzgerald as well. But I think there is always a few people that go back, even if the mainstream at the moment seems a bit more sanitized. Although pop music, I always talk more about music than literature, to be honest. And pop music these days is great compared to what it was 5 years ago. I went through that nasty patch. So I think there's still young people looking back to funk and
That's cool.
rock.
So what do you reckon's great now, pop music-wise? My blinkers are on a little.
Oh, well, I'm always into Beyonce, Rihanna, and then there's these other girls, I don't know how to pronounce her name, SCA maybe?
SCA.
And Kelela.
Yeah.
So most of these are R&B girls.
And they come, and they actually come from what I think was maybe the last great era of pop music before that, which is early 2000s, all that like Timbaland.
Right.
I think there's some, like there were overt pop records back then that I'd happily drop into a set of a bit weirder and wonkier stuff because it was so good.
Yeah.
So you start nightclubbing at 15.
I did, and my parents knew that. Before that, we'd been going to parties.
Yeah.
There were big parties all around Auckland, street parties, and
90s.
yeah, just parties everywhere.
Yeah.
But the club started, and I was into jungle music was the first sound.
Yeah.
And then the break started at Calibre.
Yeah.
And my parents knew I was going there and even dropped me some nights because I'd persuaded them that it really was about the music. I wasn't going there to get wasted. I was like, this is music. It's new. I'm really into it. And they supported that, and they've always understood that.
That's good, because I think it's been quite a hard thing to get across that divide. I think my mum, just because I communicate with her better than back then, has kind of only really come to understand that now. But I think also for, like, you know, a young woman, it's like, I'm not saying that there's not awful people in you know, all scenarios, but that seems ultimately a lot safer than being 15 and going to shit booze-based nightclubs.
Absolutely, because I could get in the clubs.
You're going to be mostly left alone.
No, it's very true. But and also I could get in, but then I knew I was underage, so I didn't tend to order drinks at the bar. I'd just stick to a corner until I was a little bit older anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas, the underground things, you're going to be drinking spumante down the drive.
Yeah. Yeah, actually just made me realise, I started doing the same thing, going to things for music, and I'd do that same thing. And it was probably... didn't really want to spend that much money on booze at that age and stuff. Not as young as you, maybe, I don't know, 17 or something, started to just go to gigs and just, like, disappear into the corner and take it all in, you know. 17, oh God, I think the drinking age was 20 then. So
it was 21,
No, it wasn't 21, it was 20.
Oh, 20?
20, yeah. God. So did you have a fake ID?
Yeah.
Yeah, parents got me one.
Yeah.
Did you get to say that?
No, they didn't.
Did you buy one from school?
No, you just needed a driver's license. They usually came from friends, older sisters or something.
And they were those big, like, ones on wax paper then that you could probably just scratch out one of the numbers.
And birth certificates as well.
And no photo. They just
photo.
They just had your name and your age.
Right.
And not much else.
And even the eye colour could be different. It really didn't take much. They were more lax. I mean, we dressed up. We wore makeup. Or we just looked really casual, went like skaters. I had one or two friends that would come.
Yeah. Wow. And then you write a biography at 16. I don't know if I could fill a biography at 16.
Well, it's not that long. I think it might be 40,000 words. I haven't looked at it lately.
Do you reckon if you went back to it, it's more like a young kid's diary, or it's actually like a bio?
It's written in the second person.
Right.
And I switched all the towns around. So I inverted them on the island. Instead of moving from Gisborne to New Plymouth to Auckland, it moves from New Plymouth to Gisborne to Wellington.
Yeah.
And I changed names. There's not really creative license in the sense of inventing things, but there's definitely omission and collation, composites and things like that. But I wrote it because, as my friends or family would probably agree, I was a little bit of a mess, drinking a bit much, didn't really know what was going on. A few incidents had happened that were not that cool.
Yeah.
So I wrote it to try and figure all that out, and it did help.
Yeah, I didn't know whether to ask about that or not, whether how kind of brutally honest it was, because no one's experience is perfect. And what would one do at 16? You know, write everything, or just some stuff? That's shit. That's a big undertaking at that age. And so was it cathartic, as you just sort of explained that you maybe intended it to be?
It was cathartic, but also when I started it, I was already out the other side. Everything in Auckland kind of came to a head, and I got forcibly moved to Nelson. And from
intervention?
Yes.
Right.
And from that point on...
God, that escalated from not drinking at 15 at the first parties.
Oh, I was drinking, just not in the clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was drinking in the car parks.
Yeah.
Or the house parties.
Yeah.
But yes, the process already had started, so the book just kind of helped that. By 7th form, I was totally straight, really, and back on my feet, and I ended up winning, top girl for English and that kind of thing.
So it sounds like you've got a busy mind.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you went on to do a degree in...
I went to England for drum and bass.
How'd you scrape up the money to do that?
That's an interesting question. I inherited it.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I inherited money from my grandmother. I had to spend some on paying for a car that I had crashed. And then the remainder, my parents let me. I guess maybe they didn't have much choice. I don't know, but kindly, they let me spend it on going to England.
So your parents sound quite liberal.
That's probably true. Yeah.
And so what, how old are you? Go to the UK on your own?
I went a couple of days after my 18th birthday.
On your own?
So I could get in the clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, on my own.
Wow, that's pretty brave.
Yeah, I didn't know anyone in London either at that time.
Did
Although
you
now,
organise anything?
friends.
Did you organise a work visa or?
No. Oh, well, I had a visa. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll get a British passport.
No, but we can automatically get the 2-year
get
visa.
the 2 year. And so how was? Because I asked this because I quite struggled in London because I'd done we were just talking beforehand about it. I don't know if I caught it, but I'd done a job that was very specific and very specific to Wellington as well. And I should have eaten humble pie and got a job doing labouring or whatever when I first got there, but I was like, no, I'm going to be a star. Well, not quite, that's a bit extreme. Anyway, quite struggled to get work in the UK. How'd you get on with that side of things, the practical side of stuff? Did it work on out pretty quickly?
No, what happened was I had an aunt in the country, but I didn't want to go straight to the country, so I stayed at a backpackers in Brixton.
Yeah.
And
straight in there, 18 Brixton in the 90s.
Brixton seemed like a good choice, even though it ended up being awful because I didn't know how far it was from the city, and it's so far for taxis.
Very far down south. Yeah,
the trains weren't running at night.
Minicab.
Right.
Yeah.
So I went clubbing every night and sort of tried to look for work, but to get a job you needed an address, and I didn't know where I wanted to work until I knew where I wanted to live. And with the city being so big, I couldn't kind of pull that together, and I was burning money. So I moved to Bristol after 3 weeks, and that was really cool. Again, for drum and bass, because that's a famous drum and bass town.
It is.
And Bristol was much more manageable. So then that's when I started working I had a cafe job at high school, actually. So kept going in the cafes.
I had a huge...
And call centres, oh my God.
Yeah. I had a huge New Year's there and ended up crying into my pillow about a week later and had a return ticket and ended up in Melbourne for 6 years. I really wish I'd stuck it out because I reckon I was nearly there. I just was at that end part of eating shit at the beginning and I should have just stuck it out. But a lot of people were moving to Melbourne at the time. So friends like, oh, it's 30 degrees today. I'm sitting by a swimming pool. Life's blah, 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 great. So, look. Melbourne was good, but it's a tough proposition to begin with, I think, unless you've got something lined up over there. Yeah,
I never figured out the work there. I always did terrible jobs. And after Bristol, I moved to Manchester again for music.
Yeah,
and football as well.
Football, yeah. So where'd you pick up the love of the world game?
Football.
Yeah.
Oasis.
Not a very New Zealand thing.
Liam Gallagher.
Right.
It's not a joke.
God, you are such a child of the 90s.
Yeah, Liam and Noel Gallagher.
Yeah.
So I adopted Man City rather than United, and they were in Division 2.
Because you don't want to be again the subculture, not the main team, the other team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I lived 10 minutes from Main Road and walked to all the home games.
Wow. I wish I'd done that when I was over there. An amazing experience. Were you into sport beforehand? Not just the...
I had tried to play football, actually, in the 7th form, but was so terrible I played with the 3rd formers. And apart from that, hadn't played sport since netball at primary school. But there was the horses, the ponies.
Yeah. Was it hard being away from that? I know how attached people get to horses as a lifestyle thing. That kind of countryside horse side of things suddenly in the UK.
I'd quit when I was about 15, 16. The music just took over. So I was.
And what were you following around Manchester? Like the whole, that's post-Manchester. That's kind of what was bubbling up then.
It was kind of interesting because the scenes were quite small. Ray and Christian had their debut album out. So Mark Ray had club nights and there was Dry Bar, Electric Chair. So it was quite small stuff. Hacienda was long gone. Boardwalk closed while I was there. So it was very much small venues doing small independent parties. But it was cool. I just went to those, not clubbing the same way I had in London because London was all about going to the famous weeklies.
Yeah. So the stint in England sounds like a few years.
18 months, actually. I
God, you
had the
packed a lot
2-year
in.
visa, but I cut it down to start uni on time here.
Yeah. And so that must... You seem to be someone who adapts to change maybe a lot quicker than I do. But going from that crazy, like, you know, because, you know, late 90s British popular culture was pretty freaking major in terms of history, right? And then suddenly you're back in quiet little Auckland doing a degree.
Oh, well, that's true, but I would just stick to my former kind of argument that even small towns, you only need a few people to have a subculture, and there was Britpop on a Wednesday night at the Box.
Hang on a second, you need to be concentrating on your uni studies in this part of the story.
Oh, I've always gone out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was Britpop, there was drum and bass, and actually in London I left behind drum and bass and switched to house music after going to Cream in Liverpool. Mm-hmm. So coming back, caliber for house was great, the way it had been for drum and bass.
Yeah.
And there was Britpop to wear the Adidas jackets. And
I lived up here in 99, and I've spent a few evenings at Calibre, and you would have been back later than that, early 2000s?
Early 2000, like bang on 2000 I came back.
How did the degree go? Were you an undergrad who just kind of handed stuff in to get by, or did you smash it?
I got A's and B's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done. I'm saying, I'm meaning more that, like, I think it's because I went straight from school when I was quite young. Like, when I did my last exam, I had just turned 20. Mm-hmm. So I think you getting away for a couple of years, I think, because I noticed when I came back as a postgrad, donkey's years later, I did really well. Such a difference from just doing okay when I was there. But I thought, if I ever have kids, I would be totally a supporter of them doing any other thing for at least a year after school and then going to uni, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. You're going to be more motivated and focused on what you want to do.
That's well, also, and you've had some experiences, but not even that. Like, you're not 17 or 18. Like, now I teach. I'm not saying that my students, you know, a number of them don't have great insight and whatever, but I realise now that's very young.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, you think you're such an adult at the time. God,
no, it was good. And
I was a fetus.
Did English Lit with philosophy, so that kind of goes back to
Classic,
the thing about thinking a lot. Classic
BA subjects. I wonder that the BA is not the sort of go-to that it used to be. Yeah, maybe, yeah. And that relates to your writing, eh? I didn't really. What do you mean by a philosophical take on pop culture? How does one do that? I've got the quote here actually. What did you say? You probably know it verbatim.
Distilling pop culture through philosophy.
Ah, yes, that's right. What does that mean?
So the book that I wrote while I was in Manchester and continued working on while I was at uni was If God Were a Manc, but I changed the name because Mancunian put out a poem and started a whole kind of movement called If God Were a Manc. So I changed it to Manchester 1999 AD. And it's kind of a visionary novel. It's a second coming novel. And I was reading a lot of self-help books like Neil Donald Welsh, who wrote Conversations with God. And I would take those books quite literally. And I was putting that philosophy into the fiction quite heavy-handedly.
But so is self-help philosophy a bit hokey, or is it based on philosophy?
I'd say it's extremely...
It's not like, hey, you can do whatever you want. Just put your mind to it.
I'd say it's extremely hokey, but I've always been interested in that kind of stuff, and I basically part believe it and part don't believe it and don't really care.
But you were self-aware at the time of the hokiness of it. You didn't write the book going, this is the key to human existence.
I think there's some of that, and then I'm like, maybe.
Yeah. How do you come up with characters?
Oh, ideas just come. I've never had a problem with characters or story or anything. They just appear.
Are they from... I mean, you're writing about pop culture, you're writing about environments you've been in. I assume they are versions of... They are archetype or stereotype, or, you know, they are the versions of people you've come across.
With God Were a Manc, no, actually. I didn't make many friends in Manchester. And no, they weren't based on anyone I met, really. Yeah. Just composites of maybe pop stars or people on TV, but not consciously.
And had you done any, plenty of people are just intuitive at their craft, but had you done any kind of reading or study on like structure or characters or narrative, or you just had an intuitive
I always
mind
read
for it?
books on it.
Yeah.
I love reading books about writing, and I took some writing classes at high school with Elizabeth Smithers
Excellent.
at Nelson Polytech.
Yeah.
So that was more about writing practice and feedback and things. But yeah, I've always read about craft. This year, though, doing the Masters has been way more information about craft than I've ever had.
Yeah. That must be so interesting so far down the track, getting that. I'd imagine some of it, yeah. We'll talk about that later. So we'll talk about what's involved in the Master of Creative Writing. But so you're managing uni, getting out and finishing. So you're finishing the novel while you're handing in assignments and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It takes 3 years. What do you do with it? Do you try and get it to people?
Right. Well, the self-publishing industry wasn't quite where it is now at all. I did have
you probably need a photocopier and a stapler.
Well, that's what happened. We actually got some books made in India, and
Wow.
the quality was just terrible. And then also I had this crazy idea. Well,
Did the spines fall off and stuff?
They crinkled for sure.
Yeah.
And the ink faded.
Yeah.
So, but I had this crazy idea to send them to Manchester, where I was no longer living, and have a friend distribute them for free. And I've always had this planned idea that serendipity was going to come along, which is a contradiction in terms. But I thought, I'll just send them to Manchester, and someone will read it and go, this is amazing, and sign me or something.
But did you send them to publishers or anything there, or just a friend?
I actually didn't. I had some weird idea that the timing was too late and the book was too didactic with this philosophy, and I kind of didn't back it, I guess. So I don't think I submitted that one at all. I just thought this serendipitous thing would happen with the published books. And then I realized there's no contact in the books. So, and I don't even know if my friend sent them because it wasn't a super close friend. I was hanging out with some guys from Manchester.
Hang on, so you
Auckland.
did send some there? I thought you said you didn't.
Oh no, I sent all of them there.
How many?
I think we printed 1,000.
Oh my god! How much did it cost you to send 1,000?
Maybe we
Indian
only printed 100.
book?
I can't even remember the figures. It was $5,000
Wow!
in 2002
To
or 3.
print them,
To print them.
and then I'd imagine X amount to get them to Manchester.
Yeah.
Please tell me you checked up with your friend to check she got the box.
I didn't even check anything. I'm super unorganized. This is probably why I'm still so obscure,
So hang on a second. So
as you kindly called me.
So you get your first book printed,
Yeah.
and you get all the copies,
Yeah.
and you send them to the other side of the world.
Not all.
With no contact details,
Yeah.
and you never check with the person you sent them to whether she got them.
Not really. It was a guy, actually. But I kept some here, and I gave them out to all the DJs in Auckland,
Yeah.
thinking that
They
they
might
have a
publisher.
contact, or just they might really like the book. And those guys have since become my friends because I was pretty young back then
Yeah.
still. And they've still got the book, you know. They'll
Yeah.
go, I remember when you came and gave me the book in the club.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's daring.
this is kind of what I've done with every book. I've had this grand, super terrible plan about how it's going to sell.
I kind of like the nuttiness of it. And then, so you must have finished uni. You took 3 years, and what was that? I'm a sucker for dates. I
So
like to count everything.
2003 now.
2003, you graduate,
Mm-hmm.
and
Went direct to Japan.
started writing a book on the plane.
Did I? Have I written that somewhere?
No, I
Oh.
just see the date here, 2003, and I figured that the way you work, you must have started
Oh,
it pretty
brilliant.
quick after.
Maybe,
after
maybe
hours.
not on the plane, but like upon arrival for sure.
So this one took
This one took ages.
ages. Life, right? I'm amazed you got the other one done in that period of time, considering everything else you're doing.
Well, I wrote the draft quickly, as I always do, but it was set in a nightclub, and I was clubbing in Japan, and I took trips to San Francisco and Chicago to see the clubs there. And then when I came back, I worked in a club. So I kept tweaking the story according to what I found. And also, just clubbing is not conducive to creativity, really. You're tired.
Yeah. You do think at the time, I could be very creative right now, but often,
It would be a window of like one afternoon a week that I would feel amazing, and then I'd go clubbing again.
I wonder. I listen to your stories, and you're exactly what you're chasing around the world. It's kind of like, I sometimes feel like we were just a few years before so many great opportunities for I don't know, the kind of approach you have to things. Like I kind of picture you should have been doing stories for Vice or something similar,
Right.
We
Vice,
didn't have anything like that.
Yeah, Vice would have been cool. Some
Yeah.
friends of mine were. You know what? I think I did write for Vice.
Yeah.
Some friends of mine were involved with Vice. I did something for them. But I just haven't really been... It's part of the reason I didn't follow news after journalism as well. You have to have that hunt, that bite to
Oh no,
search.
not news. Just being this character who pops up at all these, pivotal movies, music cities all the time.
Ah, that's true, yeah.
So San Fran, what? Deep House?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Tom Thump?
Tom Thump. I did catch Doc Martin there.
Doc Martin.
Yeah, not just deep tech,
great,
for sure.
great label called
Tech and Tribal.
Great label called Imperial Dub there.
Okay.
From the 90s. Anyway, so through these cities, you are writing the book.
And still getting in free because of writing for worlddj.com.
Great.
So that was
Perfect.
cool.
Pen and paper or laptop?
I was on a laptop, yeah.
Yeah. And what do you do with this one when it's finished? Oh, hang on. What's this one about?
This one is called After Hours.
It's the one,
Yeah.
Is that the one based in the US?
Yes,
Yeah.
I invented a city because I wanted to not... If God Were a Mank was set in Manchester and was very specific to Manchester. Everything is real.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare. So I thought, I just want to write a fictitious city so no one can say, is it still there? Is that where it is? Or anything. No one being all the many people that are reading it, of course. So I invented a city, set it in the Rocky Mountains. It's kind of a composite of San Francisco and Chicago.
Yeah.
And the novel has 8 characters, and they narrate in the first person, and it switches between them when they encounter each other. And sometimes they encounter each other knowing each other, and other times it's like strangers in the elevator kind of thing.
What was that kind of structural device at the beginning of, like, it almost felt like one would like approach writing like a play, like what? It's such a small thing to ask about, but it made me really curious. The list of characters at the beginning?
Yeah.
Well, that seems a very specific thing on your part. Why do that?
Well, there were a lot of characters, and also I'm was a big reader of Jilly Cooper.
Right.
And she writes upper class equestrian novels.
Goodness.
In England that are really trashy, and she always did
like Mills and Boon for toffs. No, that's romance.
there's a bit of romance, but she calls it more like rutting in the stables. So she always did it, and I just loved that.
Yeah.
So.
And did she do the maps as well? You've got little like
correct.
Cluedo maps in there and stuff.
She does do maps. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a bit of an influence from her.
Yeah. And so this fictitious city, it's set around the night scene.
Mm-hmm. And I write in the year that I set the books in the year that I'm writing.
Yep.
That's happened every time so far.
Ah, right. So what did you the year you were? That's interesting too, because with this one, because it took a few years.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously started off in 2003, so
Yeah.
it has to stay. So the world changes, technology,
Mm-hmm.
I find that really interesting. So you've got to keep all your whatever, anything in that world has got to be true to 2003.
Right. And then the sequel's 2012 because it took so long.
Yeah, but you can't, what's an example? You can't have like a Galaxy phone pop up suddenly. It's still got to be Nokia's. You've got to remember all that stuff.
Right. That's
Yeah.
true. And DJ equipment.
And DJ equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. And no Serato. And I remember at the Red Bull Academy, I did the Red Bull Academy in 2000.
Oh, brilliant.
And this guy, offsider of Richie Horden, actually called John Aquaviva, came in and was one of our lecturers.
Oh.
And he brought in, this is 2000, and you can imagine like DJs, they often think they're quite progressive and stuff. They can actually be quite conservative in terms of like, I think it's a fair thing. So my point is, bearing in mind laptops were, not a lot of people had those in 2000. He brings in this laptop and he shows us this thing called Final Scratch. It's like, we've got this technology where we've worked out how to play music from a laptop using a record. And we were all like, oh, fucking bullshit, it'll never take off, blah, 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 blah. And the room got quite sort of antsy about it. Look where we are now.
Exactly.
You know? So 2009, you are where, and you put the last word to the manuscript.
So I'm in Auckland teaching English as a second language, but doing relief work. And probably at that stage, I'm just starting to fade out of Ink Bar, because I worked Ink Bar every single weekend for 4 years.
Yeah.
And then finally just stepped out and started working there randomly. And then the technology had sort of evolved, so I decided to self-publish and create books, and also go back and publish If God Were a Mank that way.
So with that, I had a friend or an acquaintance, let's say, do that. I don't know enough about it. It really fascinates me because I think it's a really awesome opportunity. You did it through Amazon?
Amazon sells them, but I did the Kindle through them. But
So my question is, for self-publishing, what do? You just find a website that will give you a package deal to deliver you books and
I chose Lulu.com.
Yeah, and so what do you get? You get from them? You get the printing. What else?
That's it, but it doesn't really cost a lot. You pay for your designers, or you design yourself, and you upload the files, and then you pay $10 to have a book printed.
Wow.
You can print one book.
Wow. I see. So because of technology now, it doesn't matter whether it's 1 or 10,000.
Yeah, it's print on demand, POD.
No more plates and everything like it used to be. No more. What do they call it? Offset printing.
Right.
And so how did it compare quality-wise when it turned up compared to the Indian?
Oh, it was so much better.
Yeah.
Way better. I think they look quite good. I got a pro designer to do the covers.
Yeah.
For the first and third one is the same one, and the middle one was done by my friend in Chicago.
Had you submitted either of these to a publisher by this stage?
Did I submit After Hours? I think I did.
How does that work? What's the success rate? It's like one of these passions where it's like trying to be a star in Hollywood, isn't it? It's like very small amounts of people actually break that. Yeah.
So it was the thing about, I'm from New Zealand and it's set in the US, so do New Zealand people want it or do US people want it? I think I didn't actually. I'm remembering I sent it out a lot. I tried all the main New Zealand publishers, and there's only a few now that publish fiction, and then there are smaller presses as well, but I tried the main ones. You can submit to New Zealand without an agent, and then in the US you tend to need an agent, but I found some that you didn't. I also submitted to agents, of course, and sent it to publishers in LA and New York, and met someone who gave me their agent's number, but they do non-fiction only, but they read it and gave feedback. So I did get it revised a lot. I got a professional manuscript assessor. I tried quite hard with After Hours, but then self-published it.
What sort of stuff do they... What is it like when let's say you're writing a postgrad thing or whatever, and your supervisor looks at it? Is that the same sort of thing with people who give you feedback? It's just like, maybe you should do this.
Yeah.
Does your ego kick in? You go, no, I shouldn't, or blah, 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 or are you quite sort of open to it?
I'm really open to feedback. No, I'm not very protective at all. I'm super open. If someone wanted to publish my books and just slash the hell out of them, I'd let them. And if someone wanted to make a movie and change everything, I'd let them.
Okay.
I don't really care.
But there's but
I don't take on board every critique, you know? I use my judgment, for sure.
Yeah. And that's what I found since I've been doing more kind of academic-based stuff, is what I've realised is that there's expertise, obviously, totally, but then sort of everyone has a perspective and an opinion as well, and you need to kind of learn that everyone's just trying to do the best, but maybe not everyone's version of right is yours. So you kind of learn to duck and weave and navigate that.
Absolutely, I'm really struggling with that right now with the draft for my masters, because I've got feedback
and you're going, come on!
Yeah, just trying to it's way late in the game to be still figuring out plot, but I am.
Is this because of feedback?
It's partly because of feedback. The book's written, it's finished, but I just I'm currently editing it and tweaking.
So back to when you submit and stuff, I just thought it'd maybe be like when I've spent ages bloody getting job applications together, and then you might get 2 replies. Some people never even reply. Is it a mixture of that? Some you just never hear back from some.
Right.
You get the generic. We're not interested. You get da 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 da.
Yes, each publisher has its own guidelines for submitting, and they respond in their own way as well. So some just say, if you haven't heard from us in 2 weeks, you can know that it's a no, and others send you a form letter, just a neutral decline, and others actually do write a letter and sometimes give quite positive feedback, but it's not for us. So it varies a lot, and I have received quite a lot from them. So my idea for promoting that one, I had stickers made and sent them to DJ friends around the world with copies of the book and these stickers. And again, thought, they'll just put a sticker somewhere and someone will see it, and then they'll just buy my book. That was my great plan.
Was there contact details on the stickers?
Yeah, there was website details by this time. But my friend in New York was like, I'm just not even going to bother. She was like, don't send them the streets or the public spaces. It's just so noisy. No one's going to see a sticker. And I was like, oh, really?
Oh, you want to be able to stick them in public?
Yeah, stick them like anywhere.
You tried to launch a worldwide guerrilla marketing campaign.
Yes, on a very small scale.
Wow.
So I sent them to like Atlanta, not New York because my friend declined, although I could have tried another New York friend. All over London, Manchester. Now,
so I'm hoping that the books feature something to do with the DJ character quite prominently. I don't understand handing them to DJs.
Yeah.
It's a very specific vocation. If there was no...
all about a nightclub.
Good, okay.
All about a nightclub, yeah. There's one character who it goes a bit more into the rural side of things, but no, it's clubbing.
Do you think that now it's still this? I imagine it's like the recording industry. Do you think there's still value in trying to get an established publisher, or are you just going to keep self-publishing?
Oh no, I really want an established publisher.
What do you get when you get that? Distribution, marketing?
It can be a combined effort these days. There's not one way that they do it. You need to help and show up. And tick the boxes. But I'm just ready to be represented and not do it myself.
Yeah. So
if I have to, I will. I'll always do something.
Yeah. And then the next one's just spat out at an alarming rate. Mm-hmm. 2 years or maybe less. Mm-hmm. Less.
Yeah, I wrote that really quickly, Afterlives. So that's the sequel. And it being in 2012, I wrote it as a apocalyptic kind of satire.
Yeah.
And
where's that one set?
That's in the same city. So the fictitious US city.
Yeah, in the Rocky Mountains.
And the key characters have moved into the nightclub. So the nightclub's pretty much shut. Oh. And they're living in it because the city's crumbling.
It's like that zombie film with all those American comedians in it. Yeah,
it's not subtle. My apocalypse is not subtle.
Right. And how that's probably the quote of the episode. So how do you get it done so quickly?
I was living with a friend's friend on Simon Street, and I just had a really motivated year. I had a steady teaching job rather than relief. I wasn't nightclubbing, so that's probably a huge part of it. I was exercising a lot. I was eating quinoa for breakfast.
Yeah.
I was doing yoga all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a really healthy year. I did the Milford Track that year with my parents. That was cool.
So you did it in a year, not the Milford Track. That's way less than a year. The book.
Yeah, it is only 40,000, that one.
Okay. So these numbers you're throwing at me. Actually, no. Now I've written a blimmin' thesis or two. I do have an understanding of length. So 40,000. So what's a normal novel? 100,000?
Yeah, probably 100, 80 to 100.
Yeah.
The definition is 40 is the cusp. That's where a novel starts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the end of a
What are some of the longer ones in history? I'm thinking Tolstoy. Those books always look huge to me.
Yeah, I don't know about their words. I mean, they'd be 1,000 pages. So these books are around 200 pages.
Yeah. And so what'd you do with that one?
I just tagged that on with the self-publishing. There wasn't much point trying to get it published if the first one hadn't.
Oh, hang on. And with the self-publishing thing, right? So with the self-publishing thing, obviously you don't get a box sent to you. You only print them if you need them. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. So we're in 2010 now. Very good.
A bit ahead of that.
Oh no,
this
sorry,
is 2012.
2013.
Yeah, 13.
So, okay, so and then another quick book in 2015 so you had 2 years off. That's good to see. And then jump back into it in 2015.
Yeah.
And this is a new direction, a new approach. We're out of nightclubs.
Correct.
Where are we now?
Well, I'm living in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And which obviously I went to from teaching ESL.
Yeah.
And this one was going for gardening, self-sufficient households, alternative culture, mythology, ancestry, all of that.
That's an interesting combination. And is that... So there's sort of ecological concerns now, I sort of, yeah.
That's true. And this one was come back to New Zealand as well, because the previous 3 had been
so it's set in New Zealand?
Overseas. Yeah.
Where? A fictitious city or a country town?
The main characters, one of them is from the Waikato and the other one is from Auckland, and then they go on a road trip.
And so interestingly, again, you're somewhere completely foreign compared to here. You're in Saudi Arabia writing this book about New Zealand. How's Saudi Arabia? Was it, like, to be frank, quite shitty a lot of the time as a woman? Like, is that sort of patriarchal culture really overt, or was it they professional and good to foreigners?
I find it really easy to adapt to weird situations, because even Japan was a bit closeted. I lived in a small village where I was the only person that spoke English.
Yeah.
And they've got a lot of interesting practices, bowing all the time and catchphrases that they exchange at every moment that's appropriate.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't that much of a struggle. The job was really awful. I hated the job. But the teachers there were amazing, so we all supported each other.
Why'd you hate it?
The job was teaching really low-level students, but trying to follow quite a formal British curriculum. So there was just a major mismatch. We were trying to get them to speak English so that then they could do a diploma in English, and just the whole concept was flawed. It didn't work.
So is it? What did you say? What were your words about a formal British? What did you say? A what British?
Formal British curriculum.
So is
the Cambridge curriculum?
Right, but is this in 2000 and whenever it was, like, excuse me, sir, would you like a cup of tea? Do you mean that sort of thing?
No, I don't mean receive pronunciation as such. Just the standard, the textbooks and the testing procedures.
Right. How do you teach low-level students? How do you teach any foreigners or people who don't speak English, rather, English if you don't know their language? That's always fascinated me.
Yeah, well, most classes are mixed here, so to speak one language wouldn't really be an advantage. You'd have to speak all of their languages. But you just start at the beginning. If they
just hold things up like an orange and go.
Yeah, you
orange.
just start like kids. Imagine you're at kindergarten.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the job was awful. But Saudi itself, I just didn't really mind that much. Arriving was awful because I had applied on a whim and didn't do any research, and suddenly landed there and felt like I'd put myself in prison. And also was really sick, and they lost a suitcase.
Oh God!
So yeah, the first month was rough.
Why prison?
We were in a hotel because our apartments weren't ready yet, and you do have to cover when you go out, and it was really hot.
Yeah.
I didn't know how far I could walk on my own, what was acceptable, and also they didn't tell us that other women were in the hotel with us, so I thought I was there alone.
Oh God! And
you just sort of cautiously go down, and what are you going to eat? And
are men quite lecherous, or are they polite?
Well, it's interesting about men, which is that you don't meet many Saudi men. It's segregated, and they are very polite, quite effeminate, and kind of soft in my experience. Yeah, but what you do meet is all the foreign workers, so drivers, shopkeepers. The Saudis work in the gold shops, but if you go into a dairy or anything, it's not going to be a Saudi person.
Gold shops? I thought their big thing was oil.
Oh, yeah, but they're not selling oil over the counter.
I know that.
But they're selling gold.
So all these... yeah, but hang on. There must be more things to do in Saudi Arabia as a Saudi than sell gold.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I just mean what I encountered in my town. Yeah. So in the cities, they'd be working.
We've got gold and oil. That's about it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I'm not going to walk into a corporation and try and meet people. But in my daily life, wandering around the town, the people that I saw, the only place I'd really see Saudi men would be in a gold shop.
Right. You were shopping for gold, or
No, but there's gold shops everywhere.
right? Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
No joke.
Who's buying all the gold? It seems that they're all selling it. Are they selling it to each other?
Well, another thing is that only women wear gold. So in Muslim culture, men wear silver.
I don't even really think gold's all that. Really, I'll take silver.
It's very shiny.
So silver, but
the
it's a
men,
nice,
going back to your question,
Yeah.
the foreign men are a bit lecherous or just chatty or friendly or
so you,
not any one kind. But
it's really interesting because you know how that relates to what you said about Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a bit of time. I didn't live there, but I sort of had relayed to me that there's a number of foreign men who end up long term in Japan who tend to be of that persuasion, where they're not actually that nicer guys.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, there's
It's
definitely...
funny, eh?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Expats can be a bit unusual.
Yeah.
When I say foreigners, I don't
Gauging.
mean Westerners. I'm talking about... this is getting very black and white here. I don't really like to be like that about groups. But the people that are working around my town,
Yeah.
in the shops and things, or driving the cars, they're mainly from the Middle East or Africa or India
Yeah.
or Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So...
Are they service workers brought over there?
Yes, exactly.
Do all the bullshit that Saudi people don't have to do. God, the world's...
But I wouldn't say they're lecherous. I'm just putting them on a scale and saying Saudi men, you just don't really meet them in a way that they could be lecherous. You have more close encounters with foreign men.
Yeah.
And then there's Western men, but they'll be in compounds married to their wives. So
I hope, how long were you there?
1 year only.
1 year. And some made some friends?
Oh, yeah, the women were amazing.
And I hope somewhere like that you earned some blooming good money for a year.
Yeah, it was good money.
Yeah. And I'm sort of fascinated and disgusted in the same breath by the sort of money over there, but at the same time, I guess, like being in Dubai or wherever, is it just ridiculous kind of, luxury porn all the time, like ridiculous cars and... because they've got that, because per capita, they're one of the most wealthy countries in the world, aren't they? Because they're sitting on top of it's like the Beverly Hillbillies, they're sitting on top of an oil geyser.
The interesting thing about Saudi is everything's kind of behind walls. So,
and made of gold.
I didn't see a lot of things made of gold apart from the jewellery. But the overall impression in my town was not of great wealth. It was big cars, but not necessarily huge ones. And then we went to the capital most weeks, Riyadh.
Yeah.
And you do see, luxury vehicles and big houses behind gates. But it's just mixed like anything. There's a lot of poverty there. It's
right.
not like
That's interesting.
rich.
I just thought I thought everyone shared in that wealth. So
no.
Okay, so
don't.
just like the rest of the world, it's like the wealth's concentrated in the hands of a few.
It's just like, it's really very similar to the States physically to look at. The highways, not so much the buildings, which are made of that orange stuff, whatever it is.
So in the modern world, unless you were made of stone and had no soul, you couldn't really be not worried about the environment. But you've made it a particular theme of your later work. So where's it come about? Where's it come about from? Like I'm saying, I know 9 out of 10 of us are really worried. But was it sort of particular epiphany, or just slowly watching what's going on?
No, I'd just say it's been a theme and awareness for as long as I can remember.
What do you try and do on a day-to-day basis? I need help. I feel guilty.
Oh, yeah, I don't try to do much. I guess my writing, hoping that you get a platform and speak and vote.
I've stopped using plastic bags.
Yeah, there's all that. Yeah, I do take a canvas one to the supermarket.
Yeah.
I walk a lot.
But then the way...
I don't know what we can do. I really don't.
You say that, and that's interesting, because the way I was brought up, it's a good mixture of basically growing up with fuck all money around, but also growing up in a city where you do a lot of walking and stuff. I don't know, just the way my family's approach and attitude to things is, it's kind of partly based in frugalness as well, is I kind of have been brought up not to overtly or overly consume. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of been a good place to be throughout,
Yeah.
And like stuff like knowing how to buy food and then not mismanage it. So this is relating to when I flattered and things that have really pissed me off. People who don't know how to use food properly and they end up throwing away half of it. So like, yeah, it's like a lot of all our problems are based around overconsumption, right?
Yeah, I would agree with all that, and I take all those same measures
as
well.
Yeah. But a lot of it's just education and stuff, So I'm not actually ragging on a lot of other people. It's like, it's weird what we teach in school and stuff when there can be, I think, basic stuff like, just managing that stuff properly. It's funny. Are you terrified about Trump?
Yeah, well, writing in 2017, as I said, the novels are usually set around that time, but this novel is set ahead. Well, the road trip one was back in 2011, but this one is set 2036, but the story kind of takes as the turning point, and I put it just a few years ahead to 2020 for New Zealand, the 2020 election. But I'm riffing on the idea of what's happened now with the 2016 election. This
is the book for the masters.
Yes, exactly. The idea that we're at a crossroads. We need to make good choices. The American system's obviously much worse in the sense that it's not true democracy. It's all related to money. But here we do have political choice, and as you know, we don't even know what our government is right now.
No.
But I don't know what individuals can do, but we have to all start at home, and being a writer, that's where I'm choosing to express it.
I think what individuals can do and what might start to happen is we need to learn how to start using the internet to gain power and not let it keep being continually corporatized and, directing our attentions that way. There's something in the fact we're all connected now. We just haven't figured out how to use that properly yet.
Yeah,
That's what
I'd agree
I think.
with that.
I think traditional power structures could be on the way out.
Yeah.
But then the funny thing is we're so used to being run by them that, we do come home and look at cat videos and go on Facebook too much.
Yeah, and you wonder, what does actually marching on the street do? I'm not sure. It raises awareness, but do politicians listen? And then rioting, I like the idea of really taking action, rioting, but at the same time, most of the time, like the London ones, they're just smashing sports shops and stealing televisions.
I was about to say, that's the other thing. It's like, are you politically motivated, or do you want that whole row of trainers in that shop you've just booted?
Again, I don't want to make a blanket statement. I really hate to do that about groups, but I'm just not sure what rioting does either. So, and then in the US, that the local police have got military equipment now. So
now they've had it since the war on drugs. The crack epidemic was the first excuse for the US government to start using paramilitary style equipment. You see footage of Compton of armored tanks going into houses.
Like in Ferguson.
That's a raid over there.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know what we can do here, because my friend on Facebook is talking about butter, I couldn't believe butter was $6 in the supermarket the other day. So we need to boycott butter, boycott Fonterra.
Yeah, but I think the butter thing is...
Tell me about the butter thing. I should find out.
I think
I should do my research.
I'm defending the farmers here. I heard something that the butter thing is to do with the fact there's been something to do with feeding this year. There's a low milk yield or blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, $6. I don't understand in my lifetime how a leg of lamb that we used to have every Sunday in the, as I said to you, fairly humble family income-wise I grew up in, and now a leg of lamb's like a serious investment decision.
Right.
Yeah. And you need a mortgage for a block of cheese.
Right.
But we live in a country of dairy, and again, it's a business thing. My understanding is it's because we export all the best stuff,
right?
Because that's where all the good money is, and all the less good, expensive stuff. Back to what you were saying about how to agitate, what I think is really powerful in the States that I've seen, and it's super simple, but I think it cuts through to the sort of people who normally go, fucking protesters, they're all got blue hair and go to university, is the sitting down or kneeling for the national anthem in sports. You've heard about that?
Yeah, of course. But
I think that's so simple and so powerful.
Right, but people like Trump can just misinterpret it and say that they're disobeying the flag or something, not seeing the message.
Yeah, but I'm meaning more from the sort of people who go to those sports games, like sort of wider America. I think it's just a powerful, simple gesture that gets people a lot, people talking and thinking, I don't know. Rather than that perception that radicalism, like I say, comes out of from weird people at universities or whatever, which is kind of But
the book touches really on dairying going wrong. The cows are all gone, in effect, so they're synthesizing meat and milk. And this one phrase, as I told you, I wrote down, was Mycoplasma bovis. So that's currently the situation in the South Island, with they're going to cull 4,000 cattle. So here we are.
Is this because that's a disease?
Right. So this is what's happening right now in 2017. So by 2036, I just posited that intensive farming had really signed the death knell for that.
I'm guessing you're a vegetarian?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But I do try to eat organic meat. I'm not opposed to farming. It's just intensive farming.
Right.
Battery
We're on
chickens,
we're on the same page with a lot of things. Like I'm not opposed to. You're right. It's back to capitalism. It's back to all of that stuff. That the way that we harvest animals, the way we harvest everything, is totally unsustainable. I love the idea of being able to hunt. I fish. But I'm not quite someone to buy a gun yet and go into the hills and try and capture goats and stuff like a friend or two do.
Yeah, well, intensive farming makes a lot of sense, except the fact that it's a real-life animal that can get sick. And if it gets sick, then...
Oh, even the way they're killed, the conditions,
yeah.
Even worker conditions at freezing works, even the human end of that is not great. Shall I let you talk about the rest of your novel? I feel like I've turned the... Did you want to say anything more about the book you're submitting?
About grayscale? Yeah, sure. I could talk more about Dreams of a Family Tree as well, which is the one I'm currently trying to get published.
Okay, do that.
But grayscale actually began inspired by the Victorian novels that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And it's a marriage-driven story. So it's about a difficult marriage, and the situation's just heightened by the fact I gave it a dystopian backdrop. So because they're both high up in a corporation, their decisions and their actions has ramifications.
Well, it makes sense. A apocalyptic cow novel needs some human characters to connect with
exactly
on a personal level, and a marriage breakdown seems perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other book you're going to mention, you're just
so that one, the characters have just graduated from university, which is a bit awkward for trying to write that neat story to the publishers about where it lands category wise, because they're a little bit old for YA. I think young adult is really 13 to 18.
Do you mean the people you're writing for, or the characters?
Well, the people you're writing for relating to the age.
Oh,
of
you're
the
trying
characters.
to write a book for young adults.
I wasn't necessarily trying to, but setting them at age 21 kind of pictures it that way.
Yeah.
But they're friends. It's a platonic friendship.
Yeah.
But which I thought was interesting to explore as well. And who is the antagonist and who's the protagonist, and that shifts. And that's the same with Grayscale. That's kind of shifting about who's the good guy, who's the bad guy.
I like that. Did you sort of think about the vernacular of the 13 to 18-year-old these days for the writing style?
Not really, no, I didn't, because
Okay.
as I said, they're 21. It just puts it on the edge of that market. But definitely it's littered with slang. All my books are.
I would have written it in emojis, maybe.
Right. Yeah, no, there's a lot of vernacular in there.
You find that interesting that I think emojis are like we're going full circle with language use and deployment. It's like we're going back to hieroglyphics.
Yes.
And I'm not in jest there. I think there's something in that. I think it's just super interesting. It's like, I use emojis, but maybe they don't have the same, how do I put it? Maybe I don't understand them at the level that teens do now.
Right. Yeah, well, there's an awful lot to choose from, so sometimes I explain what I meant by sending that particular picture.
What do? Are you an eggplant person?
No.
That's a popular emoji.
It is a popular emoji.
Okay.
I send a lot of rainbows.
Oh, do you? It's lovely. I learned recently about emojis. You can't just release an emoji. There's actually a worldwide emoji okaying organisation.
Right, in terms of a whole palette of them, you mean?
Yeah, they have to decide whether it's culturally significant enough that it should be a globally released emoji. They have to decide whether certain parts of the world are served by enough emojis. So there's actually recently been a first, I think, Muslim prayer emoji. They have to decide whether they're going to work on the different platforms, like the different phones and blah, blah, blah. It's fascinating, I thought. I wanted to ask you, it says on your really rinsed your LinkedIn here. It says that you do life coaching.
Oh, goodness, does it?
Yeah. Oh, is that not supposed to be there? Maybe you added a wrong tag. Hey, no, don't look at my notes.
Oh,
no,
right. I thought that was my LinkedIn page. No. Maybe I accidentally tabbed that. I would like to get into speaking, but not life coaching.
Okay, so you don't know anything about life coaching.
I don't know about life coaching. No, I'm still coaching myself.
Yeah, that's
through
why
life,
I was
for
just
sure.
thinking, like, I don't know how I could coach someone else.
But going back to that visionary stuff, the Neil Donald Walsh and also Wayne Dyer is another one I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
And I like Oprah and anyone like that.
Oprah for what, sorry?
Oprah for anything.
No, hang on, what were we talking? I missed the beginning of that. You're talking about Oprah Winfrey.
I did go off on a bit of a tangent.
As an author?
No, as a speaker, as a host.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the same way that rock groups are making most of their money from tours or merchandise, I'm figuring an author could potentially make more money from speaking rather than selling books.
Yeah.
So should I sell books, then I would like to speak.
I think...
But not be a life coach.
I hate to be like, talking to get... Well, what's wrong with giving you suggestions? I think if you're
Go
going to do
ahead.
that, you need an agent.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like someone who represents... someone who does both of that, because it's really hard to sell. It's really hard to sell yourself, I think. In general.
I haven't done well so
No,
far.
no, not you specifically. I think like what I'm meaning is like I will give friends, really good advice or whatever. You should be doing this. You should be doing this, and they'll do the same to me and stuff. But we tend to have these great ideas for others, but not. We don't do the same for us, if that makes sense. So I think getting a third neutral person in and saying this is what I do, this is what I do, this is what I do, and this is what I want to do, is a really healthier way of approaching things.
Yeah, no, that would be wonderful.
Maybe I guess people who get some people aren't like that, but I find that I'm like that. Hang on a second. You said that 80 minutes would just seem like a really long time. Do you want to know how long there is left?
How long?
How long do you think there is left?
I have no idea.
Have a guess.
10 minutes.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, there's 8 minutes left.
Oh, wow.
Here's a weird little particular thing I read that I quite liked because it's something I've pondered. You wrote a piece about cafes, and I kind of, to be quite frank, I don't really like where cafes have gone in New Zealand.
I love cafes.
Okay. But don't you find they're just like they're kind of full of people in activewear these days? Like,
I don't notice the people. I'm lucky that I can often go to them at off-peak times.
Because you mentioned Brazil and sort of people like, writing their manuscripts, and cafes aren't like that now.
No, they're not. But I do like some of them. 8:30 have got their cafe on K Road and down on High Street. I like that. I like Kokako and Grey Lynn. So I do kind of go to the coffee places.
Yeah.
Home on K Road is great. The Scandinavian kind of place. Opposite Ink.
Okay.
And they do weird coffee where you have to kind of beg them for milk because they're like, you're going to disturb the flavour of the coffee.
Oh, that's very European.
But I'm just into all that.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Remedy downtown is great. There's another Kokako downtown.
And I liked you talked about they sort of how they buy you time. It's not. Maybe I should do that with my marking. Mm-hmm. So you need to, because I've been in hospital like you. Sometimes I feel like I'm not kind of turning over a meal and a coffee and blah blah blah. But you'll go in there and buy a coffee or a tea and sit there for a while and write.
If it's off peak,
how much time can I?
I wouldn't do that at lunchtime.
You would imagine going in Saturday morning brunch and going, I'm just going to sit here and write my another chapter. How long do I get for a? What do you reckon? Am I allowed an hour off peak with my coffee?
Yeah, you could probably push it longer.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you could push it longer if you wanted.
Because I get cabin fever here marking. And I think it's a nice way to do it. Just go to different places.
Mondays in Kingsland is beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think you can push it if no one else is there. Why not?
You're off to Chicago.
I am.
Because you met someone. Congratulations,
That's
lovely.
True, thank you.
How did you meet a Chicagoan based here?
He's a DJ.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that he ended up here.
He was touring.
Yeah. Okay. Is it a name I'd know?
I'm not sure.
Okay. You don't want to tell me. Doesn't matter. You have to tell me. We're on the record. Sorry. You can tell me later on maybe. Fantastic. And so when do you move?
I'm going there on November 15 for the Christmas period and then coming back and then awaiting a visa.
Have you been there before?
I have. I've been twice. I went once on that research trip while I was living in Japan, and that was fantastic. I stayed with family, friends, and really blitzed the clubs.
Did you go to... I was going to slip my mind now. The club that like Derek and Mark Farina and Heather and so on play a lot?
Maybe Smart Bar?
Yeah. Did you go there?
Yes.
Is it all it's cut up? All it's hyped to be?
It's...
I really like a lot of
it's
music
not
from there.
that dissimilar to Calibre, really. It's a quite grungy club. It's quite
Good.
old
I like
now.
that. A little box with a very good sound system where the bartenders know how to make good drinks.
Yeah.
I'd rather that than a $10 million fit out on the harbour.
Yeah. I haven't been there for a long time, though. I didn't go on the recent trip this year.
Yeah.
This one, I didn't really go clubbing.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really comment exactly how it is right now.
You got a job lined up?
No, I will probably do ESL as a back burner, but it would be great with the masters to teach creative writing.
Man, I want to get
and to be a novelist.
Yeah. So this dance music thing, I'm surprised in this list of places. You can probably do it now. Actually, now you're over there. You've not been to Detroit?
Yeah, it's unusual that I haven't been to Detroit.
Yeah.
I'd like to go.
Yeah, I'd like to go a lot as well.
Because another interest is
even just that festival there.
Yeah, movement.
Yeah, no. They have a daytime thing that Carl Craig started a few years ago, which is just like a hello, the rest of Detroit tourists and stuff. You might not know that this really amazing electronic music started here, but here's our day-long festival that everyone's invited to. So there's a day-long. I think it's actually called literally like the Detroit Electronic Music Festival. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be an amazing day.
I really love disused buildings as well, like disused theatres and things like that. Urban decay is a great interest of mine.
Yeah, it's a fascinating city. That's right. It's sort of speaking of post-apocalyptic. I mean, industry left there in the 50s or 60s or whenever it was. Mm-hmm. It's been a great chat. There's been some laughs. I don't really have anything much else to say except for thank you for coming in, and it's lovely to meet you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Would you like to tell everyone how to find your novels?
Sure, you can go to ebethallan.com.
And I always so it's just there's no dots or dashes or
EBETHALLAN.com.
Good luck in Chicago in summer. I'm jealous.
Summer was great, but I'll be heading over to winter.
Oh, sorry. It's of course I got my hemispheres the wrong way around. Okay. Enjoy the White Christmas.
Yeah, hope so.